Hey, 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 a massive hello to everyone tuning in. You've just walked into the Fluency Lab, the only place where we troubleshoot your English conversations in real time. I'm Leo, and I've definitely spent too many hours trapped in awkward conversations about the price of eggs.
I think we've all been there, Leo. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. We are so happy to have you back in the lab. Today, we are tackling a social superpower. We're talking about how to change the subject.
This is so important. Whether you're at a party and someone starts talking about their weird medical history, or you're in a business meeting that's going off the rails, you need a way out.
Exactly. In English, you can't just stop talking and walk away. Well, you can, but it's very rude. You need phrases that act like a bridge to move the conversation towards safer, more interesting ground.
But before we get into the specific phrases, Emma, I want to ask, why is this so hard? I feel like physically paralyzed when I'm stuck in a boring conversation. It feels like if I change the subject, I'm admitting that I'm bored.
That's actually a really deep psychological instinct, Leo. We're wired for social cooperation. There's a sociologist named Charles Derber who wrote a fascinating book called The Pursuit of Attention, and he talks about something called conversational narcissism.
Ooh, shots fired. Conversational narcissism? That sounds intense. Am I a narcissist if I talk about my weekend?
Not necessarily, but Derber distinguishes between two types of responses, the shift response and the support response. The support response keeps the spotlight on the other person. If you say, "I'm hungry," and I say, "Oh, what are you in the mood for?" That's supports. I'm keeping the ball in your court.
Okay, and the shift response?
The shift response is when I take that ball and steal it. You say, "I'm hungry," and I say, "Me too. I haven't eaten since breakfast." Boom, now we are talking about my hunger. The reason we feel awkward changing the subject is that we're afraid of looking like we are stealing the ball. We don't want to be the bad guy who stops supporting the other person.
That makes so much sense. So changing the subject isn't just about vocabulary, it's about managing that spotlight so you don't look like you're hijacking the conversation. It's social jujitsu.
Precisely, and that brings us to our first strategy. We need to pivot without stealing the spotlight too aggressively. Let's look at the smooth pivot strategy.
So, Emma, let's say I'm talking to someone and they are complaining about their boss for the 10th minute in a row. How do I switch topics without looking like I don't care?
We use a technique called the pivot. You take one tiny thing they said and use it as a hook to jump to a new topic. We use phrases like, "that reminds me," or "speaking of," word, or "by the way, I've been meaning to ask you."
Give me an example.
Okay, if they say, "my boss is always making us work late on Fridays," you can say, "oh, speaking of Fridays, are you doing anything fun this weekend?"
Ah, I see. I use the word Friday as the bridge. It feels natural, even though I'm totally changing the topic from angry boss to weekend plans.
Right, you're using a technique called association. You aren't rejecting their topic, you're associating a word in their sentence with a new, happier topic. It's like playing a word association game. They say work, you think projects. They say tired, you think coffee. You just grab that new word and run with it.
Okay, so if someone says, "my cat has been so sick lately and I want to change the subject," I could grab onto cat. Speaking of cats, did you see that movie with the jaguar?
Well, maybe not that specific example. If the cat is sick, that's sad, so jumping to a movie might be too abrupt. But you could say, "oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Pets are such a huge responsibility. Speaking of responsibilities, how is that new house renovation going?" You bridge the concept of responsibility to the house.
That is smoother. It's like a magic trick. You distract them with a shiny new object.
And speaking of distractions, that leads us to the second strategy, the complement and shift. This is arguably the most powerful tool in your kit because it exploits human biology.
Biology? Are we talking dopamine?
We sure are. When you receive a genuine compliment, your brain releases dopamine. It's a pleasure chemical. It is very hard for someone to be annoyed with you if you're giving them a hit of dopamine.
How does that work in practice?
Exactly. You are validating their status. By asking about the watch, you are effectively saying, "I notice you, and I think you have good taste." That validation disarms them. They forget they were complaining about the traffic because now they get to tell the story of how they bought the watch in Switzerland.
It's genius. But this obsession with polite conversation, it makes me wonder where these rules even came from. Why are we so obsessed with not offending people? Is there a history here?
Oh, absolutely. The word etiquette itself has a hilarious origin story. It comes from the French court of King Louis XIV in the 1600s.
The Sun King? I assume he had plenty of rules.
He did. The story goes that the king's gardener at the Palace of Versailles was furious because the nobles kept trampling on his freshly planted lawns. So he put up little signs, or tickets, telling people to keep off the grass. In French, a ticket or label is an etiquette.
Wait, so etiquette basically started as a keep off the grass sign?
Yes. Eventually, the king issued a decree that everyone had to obey the etiquettes. Over time, the meaning expanded from don't step on the lawn to don't step on social boundaries. Just like you shouldn't trample the king's grass, you shouldn't trample a conversation by being rude or abrupt.
That is wild. So when we change the subject politely, we're essentially obeying the keep off the grass sign of the conversation. We don't want to trample the other person's feelings.
Exactly. But Leo, cultural context matters here too. In the US or the UK, which are what anthropologist Edward T. Hall called low-context cultures, we rely on words. We need these verbal bridges like speaking of, because we expect people to say what they mean.
And in high-context cultures?
In high-context cultures like Japan or many Arab countries, communication is often more about reading the room or reading the air. Silence or a subtle lack of enthusiasm is enough to signal a topic change. In English, however, silence is often viewed as a failure. We feel the need to fill it.
That explains why I panic when there's a 3-second pause. I feel like I have to throw a verbal grenade to save the day.
Don't throw grenades, Leo. Throw bridges. But sometimes people don't just bore you, they trap you. What if someone asks you something too personal, like how much money do you make, or why aren't you married yet? I hate that one, by the way.
Oh, the danger zone questions. My aunt loves those.
In English, we use polite deflection. You don't have to answer, but you should be graceful. You can say, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about that yet, but I'd love to hear more about," or "That's a long story, maybe another time, but tell me, how is your new project going?"
So you acknowledge the question, but quickly toss the ball back into their court?
Exactly. The phrase, "it's a long story," is a universal English code for, "I am not going to talk about this right now." It implies the answer is too complex for casual chat, even if the answer is actually very simple.
Another one I like for this is the boomerang. If someone asks, "Why aren't you married?" you can just say, "Wow, that's a deep question. What made you ask that?"
Oh, that is powerful. You answer a question with a question. It forces them to explain their rudeness, which usually makes them back down immediately.
Let's move to the workplace. In a meeting, sometimes people go off on a tangent. They start talking about things that have nothing to do with the agenda. How do I bring them back without sounding bossy?
In the Fluency Lab, we call this the circle back. You validate the point, but park it for later. You say, "That's a great point, but let's circle back to the main topic so we stay on schedule." Or, "I think that's worth a separate discussion, but for now, let's focus on the budget."
It's firm, but professional. You're being the guard of the conversation. You aren't saying their idea is bad, you're saying the timing is bad.
Right. It's spatial language. Circle back, park that idea, table that for now. These are all metaphors for moving an object to the side so we can keep walking down the path.
Now, Emma, I have to play devil's advocate here. Is there ever a time when we shouldn't change the subject? When is it actually wrong to pivot?
I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, if someone is sharing something vulnerable or emotional, if they are grieving or admitting a failure or expressing fear, you absolutely should not change the subject. That is called invalidation.
So, if my friend says, "I'm really terrified about this surgery tomorrow," I shouldn't say, "Speaking of surgery, I need to get my car fixed."
Oh my goodness, no. That would be a relationship-ending move. In that moment, you must use the support response we talked about earlier. Stay in the discomfort with them. Say, "I can imagine that's scary. What are the doctors saying?" Save the pivots for casual chit-chat, not deep emotional moments.
Got it. Pivot for boredom, support for pain. That's a good rule of thumb.
Perfect summary. Now, what about the ultimate subject change? When the subject you want to change to is absence. You want to leave.
Sometimes you don't want to change the topic, you just want to change the person you're talking to. How do I leave?
Don't just say bye. Use an external reason. Blame the environment, not the person. I've just spotted a friend I haven't seen in ages. I should go say hi. Or I'm going to head to the buffet while it's still quiet.
My favorite is, I'm going to go grab a refill, but it was lovely catching up. Everyone understands that. The empty glass is your ticket out of there. It's the ultimate prop.
And it's a polite fiction. Everyone knows you might not come back, but we all agree to pretend you just really need hydration. It preserves everyone's dignity. And one little word of warning on exits and shifts, be careful with the word anyway.
Oh, the dreaded anyway.
Using anyway with a long sigh can sound very rude. It sounds like you're saying, I'm bored of you. It's dismissive.
Oh, I've done that. Anyway, so, yeah.
Try to make it softer. Say, anyway, I don't want to take up all your time. Or, anyway, enough about that. Tell me about... You have to wrap the anyway in kindness.
Let's wrap this up before it gets awkward. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We certainly have. Let's recap the toolkit.
The pivot, use speaking of to bridge to a new topic using association.
The compliment, distract them with something nice to trigger that dopamine hit.
The deflection, use it's a long story for personal questions that belong in the danger zone.
The circle back, use this for business meetings to keep things on track.
And finally, the natural exit. Blame your empty drink, not their boring story.
Your homework this week. Think of one topic you hate talking about. Maybe it's politics, maybe it's your dating life. Now write a pivot sentence to get away from it in the comments.
And tell us, what's the most awkward thing someone has ever asked you? We promise we won't pivot away from your stories.
Well, we have successfully navigated this episode without any social gaffes.
I think so. Thanks for hanging out with us in the lab today. It's been a pleasure.
Go out there, be social, and remember, you are in control of the conversation.
Stay smooth, stay fluent. Catch you on the flip side.
Toodles!
Peace.